Ooh, welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I am Shawnalee, and this is Limitless with Shawnalee. And I just wanted to welcome Miss Carly Jane. Carly Jane Waters.
Carly Jane to those who know me.
I gotta add that in there.
I love that.
Yeah. So, if you are not familiar with the tribe of giants, then I suggest that you go and join them. And it's all about reaching your highest potential. And so, Carly, I've known her for about 3 years and just adore her and have received some massages from her. And she is very intuitive into her work. So it's something that she takes very seriously and can read the body and really go into the senses and find, like, oh, this is what's going on in this very point of your body. And so I'm going to let her talk just a little bit about herself and introduce herself. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so good to be on here. And I really love the Tribe of Giants and just their mission and everything they're doing. So I'm so happy to be here and be sharing a little bit about me. Like you said, I'm a massage therapist, but just to wind up a little bit, before that, I have always been such an emotional creature. I was a really highly sensitive kid and didn't feel like I necessarily had the tools for processing things like really big emotions. And that was everything from like big emotions that felt hard, like grief and pain and empathy for other people, and really big highs. So it was just kind of always riding like this roller coaster of emotions. And I really believe that that led to a lot of overwhelm for me, and especially in my teen and young adult years. I was constantly seeking like an escape from some of those big feelings because they were just like sitting in me and not really moving through me, if that makes sense. There was not a whole lot of processing going on, just shoving down and kind of running me from like a subconscious place. And so when I was about 18 or 19, after I had been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease and had some mental health struggles and was struggling like with school and just being present for a lot of things in my life, I met an energy worker who just completely changed my life. She practiced craniosacral therapy, which has like infusions of Reiki and really works with the energy systems, but it's also dealing with like the structure of the skeletal system, and it really does work with the body quite a bit. So fast forward a few years later, after years of just like being wildly passionate about the holistic world and really feeling so resonant with having the mind, body, spirit connection, like an all-encompassing practice for things like emotional well-being. That led me to getting my license to touch as a massage therapist. That was kind of because I wanted to like I wanted to be that energy worker when I grew up, you know? So I was like, what's my first step? And then it just really developed from there, and I fell in love with the body completely. And I found so many amazing bridges between our physical reality and then really like ancient and other culture like expertise as far as the energy centers and that kind of balance in our body that is a little more metaphysical and not as tangible as like the sciences of the body that we have right now. And so I love to bridge those two worlds. That's something that I am constantly intending to do and striving for as I share things online or share things with coaching clients that I do virtually or even in person with body work, because I'll get a ton of people who want to come in for very legitimate reasons, right? Like neck pain and shoulder pain and helping their body to feel better.
Yeah.
But it's so fun when we can open that up even more into like the lifestyle of that person and how that can really do just as much as getting a 90-minute massage can do. And so it's just expanded over and over. And the body work and massage just feels like one piece of a really big pie of a lot of different like tools and areas that I focus on. I also found a huge love for herbology and really reconnected back with nature when I was into the holistic studies of massage and that energy work. And since then have really just been focusing a lot on frequency and embodiment of those frequencies, and just really bringing a lot of like the spiritual new age practices down to earth through the body. So that's a very long-winded way to say that I believe there are so many different pieces that can go into feeling healthy and feeling well, right? We have such an oversaturated market, I guess, for the wellness world. Like, especially when we get into things like intuitive coaching or intuitive body work and other healing modalities. I think there is such a beauty in the fact that there are so many different kinds of people practicing those things just to really connect with all kinds of walks of life. But I also think there's something so important that I've found about making sure that we can bring it all back down to earth.
Yes, totally. Yeah. We talked a little bit about spiritual bypassing, which is kind of what you were bypassing as a child. Like I did the same thing, bypassing those emotions. But there's been kind of a little bit of a shadow in the spiritual world. And, you know, there's shadow in everything, right?
Right.
But, you know, it's great to go up into the 5D and the 4D, but you also have to incorporate it on the earth. Like I felt great in the ethers and it was a nice way to feel really good. But if you're not down here taking care of the physical things, like, you know, cleaning the house, paying the bills, doing the physical things, like you're here to create on this earth. And so that's a very important piece that, you know, we've just recognized out in the spiritual world. A lot of it is bypassing and just feel good and everything will be okay. But you've got to feel through the body too. When we talked about the physical senses, and you do that through your work. And I don't think there is one way that we can really just say, hey, I'm just this, because we're multi-dimensional beings. And so there's many things that we do that, you know, okay, we're taught to market one way, right? That you need to be just this one thing and placed in this box. And there's not. There's many different things that, you know, we offer through our coaching or through sessions and things like that. So I love that you spoke on that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think that just like when I was younger and I was bypassing some of those emotions, right? Or trying to like escape those things. I think when we are spiritually bypassing, we're usually motivated from a similar intention, right? Because as human beings, like our brain really is hardwired for survival. And with how our body computes our nervous system, I think a lot of that means like feeling good, right? Or like making sure that we have a good plan. And so I'll even own up to the fact that like when I was first getting into the metaphysical with holistic studying and massage school and things like that, like I totally spiritually bypassed because it feels really good for us to just kind of cling on to this idea that all we have to do is meditate our way out of an uncomfortable situation or bypass having a tough conversation with a loved one because we just want to be all love and light and good vibes only. And, you know, I just think there's so much really good work that helps us sustain the positive feelings in our lifestyle when we are willing to like awaken to our senses, and that includes everything from the really good high vibe feelings to like some of the harder stuff that we go through as well and things that feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah, totally. And being here for it and feeling it, you know, it's something that's necessary, and what you go through, you grow through.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things are necessary. And if you don't go through it once, you'll be through that cycle again to learn it again until you really learn how to incorporate it and incorporate it with the body.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned incorporating that with the body. When I think about some of my experience when I was massaging, like, as my main thing and full
Mhm.
time as well, there were just so many beautiful examples of exactly what you said. Like, we really do have to go through the discomfort of having a knot really worked out and, like, hitting some of those nerves that radiate throughout our body for us to release some of that tension. And we also have to really be able to be present with those sensations for it to run its course and do its work. Because
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I would have a client on my massage table and they'd ask for deep tissue or really firm pressure. They had a specific focus area, but you really could feel in their body if they were present and if they were there with the sensations and breathing through it versus if they were kinda just bracing through it and, like, trying to get past it and, like, weren't really, like,
Mhm.
mentally fully there. The muscles, the tissues, like, everything just responded so differently when there was presence versus that bypassing kind of mentality, just wanting to get over it pretty quickly.
Totally. And that could so easily translate to life. And like
Mm,
we said about
mhm.
like the hard conversations and really just having the presence to be physically here. And that takes all of your attention. And, are you in that conversation? Are you having that conversation? Are you like out in outer space? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
You had a question. So, is there shadows in the darkness?
Is that question for me or for you?
Yeah, either one.
Okay. I would say, well, first I'd like to ask, like, what is your definition of darkness? Is that an emotional experience or is that like a specific circumstance?
Yeah.
But if it is in the way that I would interpret it, I guess shadows in the darkness, I'm just gonna go like in the emotional realm, I guess.
Yeah.
Like if we're feeling really dark emotions, yeah, I do believe that we can a access a polarity in that
Mhm.
darkness, right? I think there's polarity in everything. And so we could really attach to it and wallow in it and feel really, really stuck in it, which I feel like are some shadow qualities or maybe just like lower vibrational, or we can really anytime. I think that we can unlock our empowerment through believing that we have a lot of choice. I think there are
Mhm.
circumstances that are never up to our control or even up to our, like, debate. But I do think that we do get to start to step into our power with how we think about it and how we, like, sit in our feelings or choose to hold space for our feelings, which ultimately lead to our actions around it. And that's where we really get to, like, tap into the light side of having a dark or a hard experience. I hope that answered your question, Hugh.
Yeah. Um, Shadow's also there to help you, right? So the shadow isn't just, um, it's like the rejected pieces of you or things like that, but it's there to show you it's there in love. Some of those things, like the body, the physical senses, are there to help you. So that feeling of grief or that feeling of anger or that feeling of sadness, they're there present in the body because it was necessary. Like your brain, your mind wants to protect you. So these emotions are felt. And, if you don't deal with them or you stuff them down, they can get trapped in the body. And so, really feeling it and sitting with it and just having that presence to just be able to breathe through it like you would on the massage table and sit there and just be like, okay, what do you want to tell me? What is this message? And being present with it.
Yeah, yes, beautiful way to connect it back to what we were talking about, where I think how we show up is really the determining factor if there is a shadow side or a light side, right? I
Yeah.
don't think that the shadow or light comes from the circumstance. I think that just reflects how we are showing up in the circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just having grace. Nobody's perfect, so allowing yourself to be where you are. But then that's when you start to wake up and realize, okay, this is how I reacted, or maybe you didn't react, and maybe you just was like, okay, I'm going to sit with this a moment and then respond from that. So once you have that conscious choice to be able to say, okay, this is how I'm choosing to deal with this.
Yes. Yeah, that self-awareness, I think, has to be one of my top 5 values in life, period. I just think that self-awareness is where we can unlock some of our greatest potential in any circumstance, with any feeling or any thought, like any situation. I think that when we are willing to take a look at ourselves pretty honestly, like you said, and maybe just reflect on what we would like to do next time, or what we could have chosen to create what we actually wanted. I think there's a lot of empowerment that comes through being able to look at yourself in the mirror, whether it was something that you were proud of or not. It's all a lesson. I really don't believe there are many mistakes if you learn from them.
Totally, totally. And that
Yeah.
just sparked Neville Goddard for me. So if there is an experience that you go through that might be uncomfortable, or that you felt that you wished it went a different way, just before you go to sleep, you revise that and revise that scene, because that's what puts it into your memory, into your subconscious mind, so that next time when something like that happens, you can respond differently. It might take a few times, right? So is the nerves fire together, they wire together, but you've always acted in this way, it's going to act like that. That's just going to like pop up until you revise it. And so that's just a little tool that you could do. And just before you go to sleep, see that scene happen differently.
Yeah, I love that right before you go to sleep too, just when your brain is in some different waves
Yeah.
and is a little more impressionable. Our subconscious is so powerful. I think that I was kind of the point of me explaining, like, I was checking out from all of these emotions, I was avoiding them, but it led to burnout anyway, because subconsciously they were all controlling me. Like those emotions that I thought I was controlling by not feeling were actually running the show behind the scenes. And it led to imbalance in my whole nervous system, which is the mind body connection, right? And so
Mm,
when we are willing to do the work or practice those things and really work at on our subconscious, I think really significant changes can happen and we can break patterns that we've had for years and years and years.
totally. I
Yeah.
believe that too. And so, as you're working through the body, I know in your intuitive sessions now, um, as you're working through the body, it brings up different emotions or things you're able to kind of sense and feel what that emotion is, and then work with the client to kind of help them through that.
Yeah, so I really love the chakra system just as kind of a like beautiful color coded basic map. The chakras encompass nearly every aspect of life, physical, emotional, mental, even like environmental and different things like that. And so I've learned quite a bit about the chakras, and I've also learned quite a bit about how the body holds on to stress or
Mm,
holds on to stories.
yeah.
And I wish that there was like just like one map for every single body and the emotions that resonate in those areas, right? But it really is so different. And for me, in my massage sessions, one of my main focuses is really relaxing that nervous system and kind of shifting over into a very, like, restful state so that the body can just do its natural thing. So a lot of the times emotions will come up. Sometimes it's an intuitive impression on my part, but there is a lot of active participation from the clientele that I attract right now in my life. And it hasn't always been that way. There were definitely times where like I wanted to intuitively share something with a client, but I could just feel that it wasn't going to be received. So I've sort of learned to um, just focus on my intent instead of all of the messages that the body might be telling me,
Yeah.
and really allow the client to share their intent as well. And so, just because I've dabbled in the realm of coaching and I've been doing that for the past couple of years as well, I've been able to spark a conversation that allows a really safe space for people to address something that they would like to release, or even just talk through a little bit of a difficult emotion that they're going through. And then I'm able to address certain parts of the body that I know hold those kinds of stresses, or that would understand that that kind of emotional experience would impact, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of flipped where I don't go into those sessions really seeking those kinds of answers unless that's something the client wants me to do. But instead, I would like to inform the client on some of the ways that their bodies may be speaking to them through that emotional experience. But like I said, with the nervous system being one of my main focuses, that is something that is all encompassing. And the
Yeah.
nervous system it really does run the show. It runs the show of our bodies and our emotions and sleep and hormones and all of the things. I truly believe that like most healing is or can be targeted to the nervous system and be pretty effective with a lot of different emotions or
Yeah.
um, intentions for wellness across the board. And so, what I do on the table is really just create a space that people can leave all their stuff at the door and really be there in the moment, because we get to come into the present moment through our senses, and our nervous system really responds to what is happening right in front of us. And if we can create a space where the nervous system isn't on high alert or doesn't feel threatened, then it's really able to relax and kick into a state that induces hormones that are naturally beneficial for our emotional regulation and different bodily functions, right? And so there's so much healing that can happen just from creating a space for somebody to be safe and relaxed in the moment. And so that is mostly what I do. And I find that the body and the nervous system just emotionally process as it wants to. And so there's not a whole lot of facilitating that I have to do to bring out emotions in people,
Yeah.
or even bring up certain situations with people, unless I feel really called and there is that client to massage therapist relationship that they want that. I know with sessions with you,
Yeah.
you're very open. We have such a good foundation of trust. And
Yeah.
so there's so much intuition that gets to come at play in there. And I think that we speak the same language with a lot of the energy systems. And so there's a lot of like co-creating that gets to happen there.
Yeah.
But that work, I believe, could be done behind the scenes, whether you or I were speaking to it or not.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Um, oh, I was going to ask you, so what are some things that people can do from home, or like tools that they can have? We also talked a little bit about transitioning into maybe plants, or
Yes.
like what they're eating. Like we have a living body. What can we do to take care of our nervous system? What can we do maybe at home to assist that nervous system? And like, what does food, or what does like different things, like yoni steams,
Mm.
or like the little oil. Now I'm called to go get this little thing.
Yeah, I love that you asked that question, because that is something that has really come alive for me lately, especially in the last
Yeah.
couple of years. where I had quite a bit of space in my schedule. Massage sort of dwindled with 2020 and everything happening there. And there were a lot of transitions for me personally as well. And something that just came through with such an amount of passion for me was connecting to plants. I mean, I love to connect with the earth and all of nature, but there really was like a hyper focus on learning about plants and learning about their benefits for our physical body, our nervous system. I had a family friend, Lorraine, who was so generous, and she introduced me to Young Living, and that kind of sparked, like, it ignited a living passion that I already had for herbology in a different way, because there was a team of people who really spoke about the science behind it all. And so, me being so fascinated with the body and all of the bodily systems, and really being fascinated by the brain as well, I learned so much about not only like the frequency healing of plants, but how it impacts our being.
Yeah.
So when you are using herbs or oils or any kind of plants for like aromatherapy, so you're just smelling it, you're not even applying it. It's pretty cool how quickly it hits your brain,
Yeah.
because when we smell, we use our olfactory nerve, and in about 2 seconds, like, we've activated pieces of our brain that our olfactory nerve is connected to, and it's connected to the limbic system. There are a lot of different parts in the limbic system, but basically it controls, like, our emotions and our memory.
Mm.
And so if you think about wanting to use plants or oils for emotional healing, that aromatherapy is like a direct gateway to that part of our brain.
Mm.
And frequency is a measurable rate
Yeah.
of that electrical energy between two things. So, for example, between me and this oil, like, there's a frequency that we have measured between those two things. And frequency is not necessarily like, I think that's another overly saturated word. It's not a philosophy. It's not something that the new age or spiritual community kind of coined and came up with. It is physics. It's a science.
Oh, yeah.
And we are sensing those frequencies, whether we are conscious of that or not. And something that I learned through the whole team in Young Living was all of these frequency measurements of these different essential oils. And I learned that the body, the physical body in average health is usually measured at about 70 hertz, which is the unit of measurement of frequency. And there are plants that can emit a frequency of like 350.
Oh, yeah.
And they've also been able to measure, so they've been able to measure like what indicates a healthy body or even like a healthy mind and positive thought patterns. And the higher you are on the frequency scale, that
Yeah.
usually is indicative of greater health and more well-being. And so there are things that are just accessible to us, like not even just through essential oil companies, but you can walk outside and go on any hillside, and I can guarantee you can find plants and things that have frequencies that are much greater
Yeah.
than the physical body. And they really are so easy to bring into your home, bring into your food, and really incorporate into your lifestyle without it being like a huge lifestyle change or even a very great investment. So last year, for example, I was going through so many different areas that had just an abundance of rose hips. And I knew that rose hips, yes, so
Yeah.
that's the oil. And I knew that rose hips were really beneficial for the skin, I had learned. And then I started incorporating what I had studied about the frequency of plants. And I was really able to just play with them. So I ethically harvested. I made sure that I didn't like take the whole harvest for myself. And
Yeah.
was really respectful of nature and just keeping things in balance and not being greedy. But I was able to harvest quite a bit just because of how many there were in all of these areas that I was going through. And I was able to Oh, I love that. Hugh just said the smell of fresh cut grass brings immediate calm. It is really cool how that
Yeah.
sense of smell,
Just,
like I said, it's attached to our memory and it's attached to emotions. So I think there are so many different ways that we can
yeah.
like integrate that into all of our different
Yeah.
wellness practices.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I was able to create an oil that I made for my skin. And I haven't purchased face products or even like body moisturizer or even massage oil that I use on other people since then, which
Yeah.
was, I mean, that's just a benefit, right? Like economically, it was really awesome and abundant, but it also has just been incredible to experience the
Yeah.
difference that I feel in using the products like that and the true impact that it has on my brain and my nervous system. And I think that that has come through educating myself about how it all works, right? Because then I just really solidified like my belief in those plants and using them as medicine and using them as part of my wellness regimen. But whether or not you know all of the science, if there is like a sense of trust that you have, I really do invite anybody to play around with essential oils. Like lavender, I feel like is one that is kind of like a Swiss Army knife of essential oils. It can be used for so many different things, even if that was just for the aroma. But it is very, very calming and it induces parts of your brain that help with things like relaxation and
Mhm.
presence, right? And the
Yeah.
more that we are using that tool to induce a certain intention or a certain state of being, the more that solidifies in our brain and the easier it is to access. So if we are choosing to be like active participants in
Yeah.
that, I think that we can create really, really strong bonds and retain a lot of our intentions and a lot of like how we want to feel and the thoughts we want to think and the goals that we have
Yeah.
through using something as simple as like our sense of smell. They tell you that if you study with a certain scent, and it can be any scent, but if you study with a certain scent, and then let's say you have to go take a test or you have to go give a talk on it, then you put
Mhm.
that same scent on and it activates that part in your brain to help you recall all of that information. And there's a lot of studies about, I think it was like some college students doing tests and how it really did bump up the retention rate and bump up their scores when
Yeah.
they used that.
Yeah. Totally. You can just, uh, it brings right back. Oh yeah, I was studying this, and
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought with that, but
Yeah, I have there's a I don't even know what laundry detergent it is, but there's a certain laundry detergent that smells exactly like the hall closet that I have in my childhood home. And every
Mm,
time I smell
mhm.
it, it's like I could be looking at the world through my 7-year-old eyes or whatever. It's really interesting what it does to like our physical
Yeah,
experience and does to our brain in those
yeah,
moments. Yeah.
yeah. Go back and just remember that.
Yeah.
Um, and I love how um, you okay, how do I want to put this? But I know that you're very body led. So you pay
Mhm.
attention to your intuition, your feminine essence, and that has brought you through the different roles that you have done. So you've done like the massage therapy, the oils, then making your own oil, uh,
Yeah.
and then coaching, and plays a really big part also is listening to the senses of the masculine and the feminine within
Mhm.
inside of the body, and like the knowledge, but also like the feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it is, really easy to well, easy is a relative term, for
Yeah.
me, it feels really easy to feel like I want to learn all of the things about this and know all of the things about it and know how it works and have a set plan before I take action. But the rose hips were a really good example because I don't have like a piece of paper that says that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to herbology, right? But
Yeah.
I have such a passion about it, and to me, I felt so good and so excited
Yeah.
about harvesting these rose hips, and it was like everything kind of just came together, and I had the next right step as soon as I needed to take it right in front of me to harvest like this really awesome abundant product that I was able to share with people that I know and use for myself and like continue to practice and try it again and again. And so that has been something that I have really been awakened to the more that I have intended to like come into my body and focus on like my physical being and kind of, just be really self-aware, like I said, aware of how I feel about
Yeah.
things. There is something pretty cool about our sense of touch. There are I they're called C-tactile afferent nerve fibers. But we have those as soon as we're born, right? It's one of our most
Yeah.
primal senses. And those send messages to our brain that tell us if we liked the touch or not. And that is like, if you think about that, when we're just little children, that's something that it's almost like an intuitive sense, right? Because it's just by feeling somebody. You don't have to have any information about that person
No.
to know if you liked that touch or not. And
Yeah.
I think as we get older, that can be influenced by like our past and any baggage that we might be carrying around that. But for just the sake of the conversation, I think that just shows how much our body like has this kind of knowing. It
Yeah.
has this sense of if something feels right for us or not, and sometimes that happens before our brains can even really analyze or compute.
Yeah.
Um,
Or even
it's
accept.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right, because our brains, they're full of so many different voices, and I think we can get a message and have that message be sort of sitting in the archives before we actually address that. But
Yeah.
when we come into, like you said, that feminine essence where we really have, like, dropped into the body and
Mhm.
we're awake to our physical senses, it can be something that you can develop a sense of trust with for sure. Like I really had to learn how to trust my feelings after having experiences where they were so overwhelming and I wanted to get away from them and but really like be able to trust those feelings and even trust myself that
Yeah.
what I was feeling had reason or had validity, I guess,
Yeah.
and also was, like, telling me something important, that those feelings that I were having were important messengers. And so that has been one of my greatest journeys with coming back into, like, more of a feminine energy or even yin energy,
Yeah.
just like that inner world and the creativity, that's been something that has been a huge gateway for me, has been coming back into the body and really just being awake to my senses. And it's interesting because there were many years that I was inviting other people to do that.
Ooh.
And I was holding
Yeah.
space for other people to do that. But it really was something that I had to personally work on it for myself in so many other ways than a massage or just going in, like a healing
Yeah.
modality. It was something that really required a lot of inner work. And I don't believe that that inner work can be replaced by any kind of session because it really is just about tuning into your senses. And
Yeah.
you're the only one who knows like what you're sensing and how you're feeling and has the relationship with yourself, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And that everything in our physical world is kind of a mirror of what's going on inward. And so you can have different messages that come up that are repeated. And so as you start to pay attention, you can see like the mirror or the reflection. Maybe it's something that you haven't addressed, or maybe it's like, oh, I need to apply just a little bit more self love through this, or um, the repeated numbers, the repeated messages, repeated same kind of um, thing that you get over and over and over again. Really like, okay, so now I'm seeing it, but where do I feel it? And where do I feel it in
Mhm.
my body?
Yeah.
And working through that and being able to say, okay, ooh, I feel this in my solar plexus. Okay, my solar plexus is angry and it's telling me that this isn't right for me. So then you know, okay, well, I'm going to have to say no to this. And
Yeah.
that's where you develop that self-trust, and that's where you develop like that inner knowing, yes, this is for me and this is no for me, and being able to really stand up in your own voice and really be vulnerable. Having like those boundaries, but it's really an expression of love for yourself and the other person, in being able to say yes or no, this is a no for me, thank you. And really without having to dive deep into any of our stories or into anything other than just no as a complete and full answer.
Mm. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think that boundaries, I mean, those are our defined personal limitations, right? But it is
Yeah.
exactly that. It's a personal limitation. And I think so many people struggle with being able to give those direct no's or give those clear answers because they might be
Yeah.
disconnected from themselves personally. And just like you said, where everything is mirroring something to us, I truly believe that most things in our life are granting us the opportunity to come back to ourselves or to look at ourselves, take a look at ourselves. And that's not in a way that is selfish, like in a negative connotation, right? Or
Yeah.
self-absorbed, but I think that that is in a way that is self-accountable,
Yeah.
and that is truly one of like the highest forms of service that you can do for other people is being somebody who is self-aware and who is introspective and looking inward and verbalizing what is actually true for them, right? Whether that is like a yes or a no answer, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And it is really cool how we get to communicate and how we get to relate to other people
Yeah.
in those ways. And um, I think that it just bleeds into every other area of life when we are focusing on ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you understand yourself as perfect? If not, then which other you are you comparing you to?
Then which other me am I comparing me to? Do you remember what I said that I was
Um,
comparing?
just that introspection, what you see in other
Do I
people.
understand myself as perfect? I don't I'm gonna answer this just to the best of what I think, because I'm not really sure exactly what part of what I was saying this question is related to, but I would say that perfect is kind of an undefinable term, and so
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I am perfect in, like, an egotistical sense, but I think that I've learned to trust that things are just as they should be, including myself,
Yeah.
until they change and until they feel uncomfortable enough to move or not aligned enough to change things, and so I would say that there's a sense of acceptance
Mhm.
that I have, like a radical acceptance of things going on, and then I'm not really sure what the comparison question was
Yeah.
relating to, so I don't know how to answer that. I'm sorry, Hugh.
That's
If you
okay.
wanna elaborate on that question, I'd be happy to give you a more
Yeah.
a better answer.
And yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but um, let's see what other question I had. Processing through the body. Ooh, you are in the middle of a journey through the body, and actually almost to completion with one of these events. So I know that you have been doing a 40-day journey,
Mhm.
um, processing through yoga. And so I will let you talk just a bit on that.
Yeah. Um, well, like you said, I'm still in it, so there is not quite as much of, like, the hindsight that I can offer right now, which I feel like hindsight brings a lot of clarity, but as I'm in the middle of it, I've been doing 40 days of yoga straight, and each week there's a little bit of added time to the practice and different intentions. And right now I'm currently setting aside 2 hours of time aside just for this program that I'm doing. And something that I noticed yesterday, I'll just share like a very recent experience about it, is that I really got to see how we can have the opportunity to just like sort of surrender to the body and just trust that the body will be able to. I pushed my practice off like just time and time again yesterday and it was the very last thing that I did, but I was determined to do it. It was so late at night. My tank felt empty and I really did want to give up, and I was kind of giving myself like all of these excuses as to why, like, oh, I think it's looking out for myself more if I just let myself rest. Like my body needs rest. I'm not going to just push through it. But I did decide to go and just see how much I could do. And while it was definitely one of my sloppier practices, as far as like the other 40 days when I've gone and woken up in the morning and done it, it was amazing to see how much more my body could do than my mind was willing to believe. And I think that that's a theme that I've learned throughout the whole experience when it's come to poses that I'm seeing a picture of somebody else doing, and I'm all wide-eyed thinking that there's no way in heck that I could do that, right? Like, I really it's interesting how much I get to see my mind in these kinds of physical situations, and I think that's one of my favorite parts about yoga is that it does feel very holistic in the sense that there is an intention for your mind, and it is very much a physical practice, and it is to help us get stronger and more flexible and help us grow physically, but there is so much else coupled with our mind and our spirit for me. I really feel the spirit of yoga come through, and I will say before I started the 40-day journey up until now, like you said, I have about, I think, 4 or 5 days left. I don't quite remember, but before I started, some things that I will notice or that I can take note on just being this far into it is that I have not felt like as strong in my body as I do right now. So it's really cool to see what in just over a month, like how much our body can change if we're consistent. That is amazing to me. I think
Yeah.
that commitment and that consistency is what makes magic, right? And I
Yes.
also have noticed how even like my countenance and my posture has changed. And being able to really like move through my body first thing in the morning has really activated like energy. I've been able to just kind of naturally like let go of caffeine. It was just something that I noticed, like, my body didn't really want anymore. It felt a little overwhelming, and it felt like there was a dependency on it, but not a need for it, right? And so it was beautiful how the yoga was able to kind of aid, like, the cleansing of some unnecessary things. And when I have come into my body and I've really, like, put value and priority into taking time for my body, there was not a whole lot that I had to try really hard for when it
Yeah.
came to, like, even kind of improving the way that I ate,
Yeah.
or just intuitively feeling like things that helped me feel really good versus things that sort of slowed me down and didn't feel as life-giving. And
Hmm.
so it has been really wonderful to just give so much focus onto, like, how I'm feeling in my body and how that has bled into every other area of my life as well. I think that how we are showing up on our day-to-day is a really great indicator of, like, the measure of our life, right? I think that
Yeah.
those day-to-day moments matter a lot. And so among the many, many other lessons, or even, like, the ways that my body has morphed and changed, I think something that I am taking away from this the most is being willing to, like, slow down with myself when I'm taking those moments for myself, because they are so important and really do impact the rest of my life.
Mm, totally.
Mm.
Totally.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
not doing yoga in that form and fashion. I do yoga maybe like once a week, but learning how to run and do like kettlebells, and we talked a bit of like that physical difference. It truly does make a difference. It helps you to ground like everything that you've done spiritually and up in the ethers, and bringing it down to earth, and
Mm,
really bringing
mhm.
it into the body, and helps you be rooted within yourself. And it's so life-giving. It gives back to you, and putting in that consistency, and that time, like, it's a whole different vibration. We talked about vibration and frequency. That right there just raises your whole vibration and frequency, in keeping that commitment to yourself and that promise to yourself, and knowing that you can trust yourself with those things. And then, you know, that could lead to any of the challenges or things that we go through life. Is, am I going to be able to push through this? Am I going to be able to be present for this? Because not all things are pleasant that we have to go through. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
very,
such a good space for just taking a look at yourself, right? Like, I think that we get to see how we show up when we are in a commitment that isn't always easy or comfortable, like working out or changing our diet or just any of our habits. I think that the mental benefits are also amazing. And I have an autoimmune disease that has really impacted my hormonal regulation, and so hormones are something that I think about all the time and I'm just very conscious of. And I have type 1 diabetes, but I've been able to see how, intentionally, like, moving my body in these kinds of ways, how it has really kickstarted a lot of production of some hormones that I felt like were a little deficient for me.
mm,
Things that are, like, improving my sleep and my mood and my appetite. And also, this was really cool for me to see just because I am frequently checking my blood sugar, but even seeing those numbers, like, change pretty drastically without any other factor changing, other than just the physical movement and, like, how that has activated different hormones and all of these things that my body is really good at naturally doing if I support that. So it has been really cool to see the changes on just all kinds of levels: emotional, spiritual, mental, physical. It's been wonderful.
I love it. This is the to go along with the perfect you.
Oh,
You are the only you in this world. Therefore,
you
being
perfect self.
perfect self. Most
I
people say
see.
they're not perfect. No,
I
I
see.
agree.
I
Yeah,
love
I love that too.
Yeah.
Each one of us are perfect in our own very unique way. Nothing can ever recreate ourselves. And so that's really what like this healing journey is about, is helping other people, not only ourselves, but helping other people to see that perfection within themselves, and really bringing them back into the body, and into their physical senses to um, be able to heal it, feel it, to heal it. Is there anything else that you would like to leave with people to kind of wrap it up, or that
Hmm.
you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, I love what you just said, how you elaborated on that. I do think that we have more of a perfect design than we could ever even fathom, and I think that even shows up, or especially shows up, in our body. I think
Mhm.
that there are so many different choices that we can make that impact that, but if we are choosing to support our body or create a lifestyle in a way that really does prioritize health on a holistic level, I think it's pretty miraculous how our perfect bodies can just kick in and create the kind of balance that we are needing. I think that there are so many mirrors in nature to like our physical being, but just as in nature, and how nature has like this beautiful balance to everything and is such a regenerating ecosystem, our bodies are also very capable of that as well. And so I think when we are prioritizing our body, it is extremely spiritual, because we are supporting like this vessel that those other parts of us that are just innately intuitive and innately creative and whole and happy and perfect, I think they just get to shine through when we are focused on creating a vessel that allows for that to shine through. I
Mm.
think that we don't have to try as hard as we think we do
Yeah,
to find health and to find healing. I think that it really can come through us if we create an environment that supports it.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I love that. I love everything that you just wrapped up with. I
Thank you.
agree.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thanks so much for having me tonight. I really enjoyed talking with you.
You too. Thank you so much for coming on, and we could talk for hours.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Honestly.
Well, we'll see each other tomorrow, so we'll continue on there.
Yes, yes, we're gonna have our own healing in nature and go
Mhm.
soak up some minerals
Yeah.
in the spring. So, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, Hugh, and
Yeah.
everybody else that joined tonight, and those that will watch this when you watch this. I hope that you have found some things that you can go do at home, that you can help regulate that nervous system, help go through those physical senses, and really treat the body as the temple that it is, and just really fall in love with yourself more, and just be able to honor and cherish. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Amen. Yeah, thank you. I'm just gonna add one quick note as well, just
Oh, yeah.
because I would love to continue connection with anybody who was listening. I'm
Yeah.
really active on Instagram. In the show notes that Shawnalee has, my Instagram handle is there, but I have been working a little bit behind the scenes to create a lot of content as far as really simple, practical ways that we can invite in some pretty beneficial healing practices into any walk of life. So I'd love to see any of you there. And thank you, Hugh, for your all of your questions and input.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. All right.
Thank you.
Good night.